So have you ever just looked around and felt like literally everyone else had their life figured out, except you? Yeah, it's a really heavy feeling. You look to your left, you look to your right, and it just seems like everyone is moving at absolute lightning speed, right? Meanwhile, you are just completely stuck in the mud. Well, the author of our source text today tackles this exact, deeply relatable feeling head-on. They actually openly admit to living it, to being totally consumed by that creeping sense of inadequacy. And today, we're going to unpack exactly how they navigated through that dark place and actually came out the other side.
Okay, let's dive into this explainer. We're exploring a really powerful journey about reframing our setbacks, titled The Day I Started Believing in Myself. We're going to look at exactly what to do the day after you fail, breaking down the anatomy of a personal crisis, and more importantly, the actionable steps to rebuild your confidence.
Section 1. The Comparison Trap.
To really understand the author's mindset here, we have to look at their daily reality. And honestly, it went exactly like this. Wake up, go to work or school, come home, sleep, and repeat. It is that quiet desperation of being stuck in a repetitive, completely unfulfilling daily grind. You know the feeling. Days blur into weeks, weeks blur into months, and you're just kind of going through the motions on autopilot without any real sense of purpose or forward momentum.
But here's the kicker. From the outside, everything looked perfectly normal. Just a highly functional person going about their business. But on the inside, it was a completely different story. They were constantly wondering if they were actually moving forward or just standing entirely still. It's that exhausting double life, right? Maintaining this totally normal facade while battling an absolute lack of direction underneath.
The author notes something so relatable here. Every time someone shared a success story online, I felt like I was falling behind. This internal struggle of standing still was completely amplified by the outside world. I mean, they spent a lot of time comparing themselves to other people. It seemed as if everyone else was out there just effortlessly achieving their dreams, hitting milestones, celebrating wins, while the author was desperately struggling to find any sense of direction. That comparison trap literally turned their own stagnation into a feeling of active failure.
Section 2. When things fall apart. So the author had a project, and they didn't just casually try it. No, they invested weeks of time, pouring so much personal energy and hope into making it work. And the result? Complete, utter failure. It didn't just underperform, it literally didn't work out at all. And I really want to emphasize the sheer weight of this. When you put your time, your physical energy, and your emotional hope into something, and the whole shebang just collapses, it is absolutely crushing.
Naturally, that crushing disappointment leads to this haunting question: am I good enough? The author felt so profoundly disappointed by this massive failure that they began to genuinely question their own worth and capability. In fact, our source material tells us they seriously thought about giving up altogether. And let's be honest, when you've poured everything you have into a project and it just shatters, giving up often feels like the only logical, self-protective option left.
Section 3. Redefining the failure.
But right here is where the entire story pivots. The author realized failure wasn't trying to stop me, it was trying to teach me. Let that sink in for a second. That single thought changed absolutely everything for them. Before this exact moment, failure was a brick wall, a clear signal to just turn around and stop trying because they simply weren't good enough. But with this realization, failure transforms from a barrier into a classroom. It wasn't an enemy anymore, it was an instructor. They completely flipped their focus. They stopped fixating on what was lost, the time, the energy, the failed end product, and instead proactively asked, what was learned? This is such an incredibly active response to a setback. Instead of playing the victim to the failure, they decided to extract real value from it. They began actively searching for the lesson hidden inside all that disappointment.
Section 4. The Power of Small Steps.
So once the author decided to actually learn from the failure, they started taking action. But what did that actually look like? Well, it was reading more, practicing every single day, improving one small step at a time. The source text is super clear on this point. The progress was not dramatic. There were absolutely no overnight successes here. It was just quiet, persistent, unglamorous daily effort. They took the lessons they learned from the failure and applied them in tiny, highly manageable increments.
Now, this recovery was definitely not a straight line up. Some days were super exciting when things finally clicked. Other days, deeply frustrating. But the magic here was in the consistency. Every single small improvement, no matter how frustrating the overall day was, gave them just a little bit more confidence than the day before. That confidence was slowly compounding. Months later, they weren't even the same person. They realized,
I hadn't become successful because everything went perfectly. I had grown because I refused to quit. Real growth didn't come from flawless execution or some sudden stroke of luck. It came entirely from persistence. It came from showing up on the exciting days, showing up on the frustrating days, and simply refusing to throw in the towel.
Section 5. Your story isn't over.
Looking back at that crushing failure that almost made them quit, the author reveals something pretty surprising. They are actually grateful for it. Why? Because without that massive setback, they might never have discovered their own internal strength. They wouldn't have learned the true value of patience, and they certainly wouldn't have understood the absolute necessity of persistence. The failure, ironically enough, was the exact tool required to build the traits they needed to actually succeed.
Which leads to this profound realization. Life has a funny way of teaching us the lessons we need the most through challenges we never asked for. Sure, sometimes we learn through success, but far more often, our greatest periods of growth and our most vital teachings come disguised as these uninvited, difficult moments. Projects collapsing, plans failing, days where we just feel completely stuck.
And so, the author offers this direct, super encouraging message to anyone out there who is currently going through a tough time. Your story isn't over. One bad day does not define your entire future. One mistake does not define your underlying ability. You just have to keep learning. You have to keep moving forward. Even if your progress feels incredibly slow, like you're just taking those tiny, unglamorous small steps we talked about, remember that you are still moving in the right direction. I want to leave you with this final, really powerful question to think about. Years from now, when you look back on your own journey, what if the obstacle you're facing today, that failure, that frustration, that feeling of being totally stuck in the comparison trap, is actually just the beginning of your greatest chapter? Keep believing in yourself no matter where you are right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the tools to see your next setback, not as a stop sign, but for sure as a teacher.